disagree. I would argue that there's actually axioms and premises and logical foundations for why we should choose certain things. I mean, I understand this is the fundamental contradiction between our worldviews, and that's why it keeps coming back to things like logic and things like objectivity. And again, I understand that within your worldview, you can't have those things, and you're saying we don't need those things. We can make quote unquote claims about the world based on our assumptions of the environment and how they stimulate us and our innate biology and how that affects us. And then you're agreeing that you can't make universal moral claims either. So you're a moral subjectivist. And so you're basically in a point in which the only thing that really exists in the world is power. And in that game, the things that you advocate against, be it slavery, be it reparations, I mean, if people in power decided not to, you can't actually make an argument of why it's wrong.
So people in power, like white people, when they enslaved black people, they said like, hey, you shouldn't have rights, but things still changed even though there was a power dynamic there. So I'm not saying that the only thing that exists is power. I never ever said that actually. All it says that you cannot, there's no way to prove by definition objective truths or objective moral claims, because in their definition, they don't require evidence, they just exist, they just are moral, they just are true. That's not conceivable. In any circumstance when we have some type of like premise, we either just assume it, like we assume that, like for example, again, like I've said before, reality exists, right? We assume that to make tangible discussions, make tangible claims, test hypotheses, whatever. But beyond that, like if I want to say, we should all like, I don't know, I'm trying to give some example. Like slavery should become a thing again. People don't say that as like some absolute truth. They give reasons why and it persuades people or it doesn't. I'm saying that we need to push certain ideas and beliefs that, promote happiness and goodness, because I think most people would enjoy that. I think it would be the most optimal society when we value fundamentally, equality of opportunity and in general.
And so how could somebody be, if free will doesn't exist, how could they be persuaded to adopt a different opinion?
Like because we don't have free will right now. However, I can have this discussion with you, and if we have, for example, let's say we both value individuals, but then you're like, I want slavery or something. I could say, well, hey, if you value people, here's what would happen under slavery. Then I could move your credence and move your belief into believing what I believe is that we shouldn't have slavery, right? So you can still move people's, beliefs
would that
under this.
In your opinion, in your worldview, does that insinuate that people can make choices between two different things?
It wouldn't be a choice between two different things. It would be like your brain processing one belief over another belief, and depending on, again, your biology, your brain chemistry, and like your socialization, you would pick one over the other. However, if we introduce better stimuli or more stimuli that promotes one belief, you're more likely to believe that, and that's how we get, like, for example, better people in society.
But if I'm determined, or my innate biology and my environment determines me to choose the opposite of that, aren't we both on equal footing?
What do you mean by equal footing?
That any claim that you make or any claim that I make, they're essentially equal claims. There's no one that can be superior to the other, because due to the mechanisms of how I came to my decision, it's really just a belief that I've acquired, or the word you're using, assumption, because of the environment and the biology, nature versus nurture. And if that's the case, well, then I don't understand, again, the premise of the debate, the premise of coming here and persuading people, because the people that watch this and choose the opposite of you, they're no worse or better than you. It's the same. I mean, it's equal. It's just deterministic.
I think it's funny needing to say that like one belief in this metric is like yours is better than mine. I think it's just that, like, in society, I think that all we can do, like at least what I've seen, is take a descriptive lens and look at the history of society and look at the brain and just look at like the way that people act. I think that we have not seen any proof that these things are inherently better or worse. However, that doesn't mean that we can't promote different ideas because of what the outcome would be. For example, if you value human beings, which most human beings do,
agreed,
some such system would result. The question is not whether people value human beings. I think a lot of people, especially now, really do value human beings. Most of the time, the argument for slavery was just like, oh, they're not human, therefore we can do blank. Not saying that no one has ever not valued human beings, but many times they have something like neurologically that is actually a disorder, or whatever the thing is. So what I'm saying to you is that whatever system is going to come about, depending on what stimuli we introduce and how we kind of gauge people who tend to have that bad brain going on, and who tend to have like less mirror neurons, things like people who are like really bad psychopaths or whatever it might be. So it's not like a bearing on my claim. It's just like, I think I'm just describing how reality exists.
Okay, I understand that that's what you feel like you're doing. My point is, I just don't see how your argument against somebody who would assume the opposite, so let's say me, for example, or anybody watching the stream, how we get to a point in which we can justify one over the other. And so what you were saying, and I was listening to your response, the follow-up I'd really like to hear is like, your anthropology, do you kind of view humans as mechanisms based on the nature and the environment and then the biology in which that they have? Are they a mechanism? Is that how you would describe it?
You can call a human a mechanism or whatever you really want to. I feel like the way that you describe it doesn't really matter. If you define a mechanism as something that operates off of like
inputs and outputs,
I mean, you can define it that way, but regardless, what we have seen, what psychology has proven, why we have the nature-nurture debate is because people are composed of nature and nurture, and that is the claim that I'm making. So the way that you codify it, it doesn't really matter to me.
So my question then, if we are mechanisms, I'm curious, can I grape a typewriter I mean, that is a mechanism that's purely based on inputs and outputs. And if we are mechanisms, then I don't even see how you could argue against grape, which again, as I'm a Christian, I believe we have free will, and that violates somebody's volition and consent. So it's wrong in that sense. But from your worldview, I don't even see how you could say that grape is wrong, because it's the mechanism. The man doing it was determined, and the woman receiving it, she was determined to kind of be in that situation no matter how she feels about it.
So really quickly. So we don't think that grape is wrong, right? Just because like the person, I think part
When
of the
you say
reason
we, who do you mean exactly?
I mean, I guess you can just say, like, in general, I think if we take it from a societal like lens, like even if the person like didn't know what they were doing, we would still didn't know what they were doing. We would still like kind of have a problem with it. But I think one of the biggest reasons why grape is wrong is because someone is negatively affected and they didn't want such thing to happen to them, et cetera, right? I think grape is wrong because I value people and I value human beings and their well-being and their safety, right? So so when someone grapes someone, great. Okay, sorry. Essay. So when someone essays someone, I would say that, like we said, that those actions, we don't like those actions. They're bad because they kind of like violate someone's ability to kind of just like freely exist and kind of just like exist like with their bodily autonomy and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. But the solution is not to say I think we should say boo, that is bad. But the solution is to rehabilitate that person, find out whatever caused them to do that, and exterminate that cause. So that's kind of the way I would take something like grape or
what if the cause is biological?
Like yeah, so that's why we have like meds and pharmacy. Like we have things that like we can pinpoint what part of the brain is causing the problem and provide a solution.
So another question. There is an argument regarding, this is specifically regarding like Daniel Dennett and his compatibilism, regarding like what kind of the issue that we're talking about regarding moral responsibility and things like this. And it's called the manipulation reductio ad absurdum argument. And so suppose there's a woman named Alice and that a neuroscientist engineers her so that due to all mechanisms that she is programmed to commit a murder. And she, through compatibilism, again, Daniel Dennett's terms, uses her freedom to choose based on those things. So there's not an exterior reason or cause compelling her to commit the murder. And then she commits the murder. Is she responsible or is she not responsible for your perspective?
So yeah, I think this idea of moral responsibility comes from this idea that we are these isolated causal agents, which again, I disagree with. I think that when we look at like when people do bad things, we need to look at, just like you explained, the mechanisms and the foundation that caused them to act in the way that they did. So in that sense, I think that this idea of fault and blames comes from this idea that everyone has this kind of like set state of like, they know the things that they should and shouldn't do and whatever, and they're operating off of the same, basis. So instead, I would say that like that person, I think I wouldn't even reference moral responsibility. I think, how can we make it so we figure out what caused you to do such thing and stop it, right? So it's like... I
understand, but using my thought experiment, let's say Alice committed the murder. In your worldview, would you find her guilty or responsible, or would you say she's not guilty or responsible because she was programmed through neuroscience, say like a Neuralink, Elon Musk Neuralink or something like that?
Yeah.
Again, what is she...
If you want to go from my framework and
that's what I want to know is like in your framework, how would you address Alice?
Yeah, so legality works in a way where it should prioritize rehabilitation and fixing whatever, again, caused the output, right? So, for example, if it's her engineering, you said it was engineering, that kind of sounds like a lot like biology. If it was her biology, something that she was encoded with, we fix that, right? We give her the drugs that she needs, and then we take her to somewhere where she can no longer hurt people, right? That is the output. So my legal framework does not have to do with like dishing things out because you deserve it. It's dishing things out they're going to fix the problem.
I just want to know if she's culpable. Like in your worldview, is Alice culpable for the murder because the neuroscience engineered her to do it?
No.
Yes or no? So she's not culpable.
No, I don't.
Well,
see
that would violate compatibilism because in that hypothetical, she is not compelled by external factors, and she's only conditioned by her internal response in her biology, and therefore within a compatibilistic framework.
I'm not a compatibilist.
So earlier you were arguing for compatibilism.
What? No, I wasn't. I'm a determinist. There's a difference between determinism
and
compatibilism.
Well, compatibilism is a form of determinism.
So maybe you can call it soft determinist.
Yeah, it's a sub-branch.
Or whatever.
It's a sub-branch.
But once again, a determinist would say that she is culpable. I would say she's not, because as a hard determinist, not a compatibilist, I would say that even your biology is one of these causes that you are not in control of. You don't author it. And compatibilists agree with that, but they just